After the 28th World Martial Arts Tournament, the Earth has been in a time of peace, so Kale finally got a peaceful life like she wanted. She didn't enjoy fighting anyway, so when she finally got to return home, she enjoyed her life. She continued to take care of the plants and animals she had gathered for her research. As mentioned before, it eventually would have become like a zoo that was open to the public. Since she was also doing biology research for Capsule Corporation, she would work together with Gohan on his biology studies. However, their studies would go far beyond life on Earth, since with Kale knowing the Kai technique, they can travel to other planets easily. Her zoo would soon expand to include some of these extraterrestrial life forms. Eventually, the two would likely release books together about their findings on biology and botany. Also, she would work with Dr. Hedo sometimes in doing research, as he also worked for Capsule Corporation in this timeline. Though he was mostly doing cosmetic research for Bulma, he and Kale would be able to cooperate on this, since with her knowledge of botany, they could work on finding natural methods for different cosmetics. She would also continue to tend to her garden with the help of 18. Occasionally, others like Broly, Sala, or Paragus would help her, though as Sala and Paragus continued to grow in age, they would help less over time. Kale and 18 would also keep up with training Pan like they promised to, since this also allows Kale to fulfill Goku's wish about wanting the next generation to handle things. As time went on, and the Z Fighters continued to age, they would come to the end of their lives. After Goku's death, Chi-Chi stayed widowed, but she continued to look out for her family. While she normally didn't promote her family fighting, she was a little more lenient about it, so she sees it as keeping Goku's memory alive. When her granddaughter Pan wanted to train, she would help teach her the little martial arts she remembered. After 18 defeated Hercule many years ago, there were a couple times he tried to regain the title of champion, but he never succeeded in doing so. Eventually, he decided to retire from martial arts so that he could spend time with his family. Since the people of Earth still thought he defeated Cell after he passed away, he was mourned worldwide, and he continued to be remembered as one of the Earth's greatest heroes. After coming to Earth, Paragus would have mellowed out over time, and he would continue to develop a better relationship with his children. He would also slowly work on his relationship with Sella. She would eventually forgive him for what he did with Broly and wanted to do with Kale, but they wouldn't become romantically involved again. The most they would become would be friends, though there might still be some brief moments of tension between them. Sala would have kept up on maintaining her own garden to pass the time, while also helping Kale tend to hers, just so she could spend time with her daughter. She would also spend time with Broly, and she would go out to do things with both of her children. They would have certain days set aside just to spend time together as a family. Lemo's food impressed Beerus, so he fired Whis from being his chef and hired Lemo to be his cook. Since Beerus napped a lot, he would be back on Earth to visit Broly and Chi quite often. Though anytime Beerus woke up, Whis would come to Earth to take Lemo back to Beerus' planet. Broly would have settled down on Earth and got a house of his own built near where Kale's is. Besides helping Kale with her garden and animals, over time, he would have developed a closer relationship with Chi. It's possible they would have settled down and had a family of their own, which would give us our first Saiyan hybrid that isn't part human. Before Lemo passed away, he would have been like an uncle to their children. Since he was Beerus' chef, it's likely he would have taught them some things about cooking. Though, one of Broly's children would have been really interested in cooking, so they would ask Lemo to teach him how to cook. After he eventually passed away, and Broly's child was old enough, he would become Beerus' chef instead. Regardless, with the help of Kale, Broly would have gotten his anger completely in control. Thankfully, their anger issues didn't seem to pass on to his kids, so they weren't difficult to manage. Before he passed away, he likely would have had one last fight with Kale and Vegeta. Vegeta would continue training both Trunks and Bola, so that they weren't surpassed by Kakarot's children and grandchildren. He would also continue training with Beerus and Whis, though he would go more towards training with Beerus. While he would learn how to harness the energy of destruction, he doesn't become the candidate for the God of Destruction. He refused to give up his family, since if he became a God of Destruction, he would be made immortal, so he would outlive his entire family. As he was getting older and realized his life was coming to an end, he would challenge Kale to one last fight. They would go to an uninhabited planet so they couldn't destroy anything, which is where they would have an all-out fight. After the others in Kale's family passed away, she spent most of her time with 18, though she still tended to her garden and zoo, and she would occasionally visit the other heroes. She mostly just visited Piccolo or Chi and her family since she would have helped with training Broly's children after he passed away. Though, she would eventually get to the age that she wanted to retire. She would pass the zoo and garden on to one of Broly's children, as she and 18 couldn't have children. Since one of his kids became Beerus' chef, she worked with the other on teaching them about science, so that they would be prepared to take over on the day she retired. Anyway, after retiring, she kept a smaller personal garden, so she had something to do. After Kale passed away, she was allowed to keep her body in Otherworld. She would quickly be reunited with all her old friends and family. While the reunion with her family and friends would bring her to tears, she'd be happy to see them all. She'd be especially happy to see Goku again after all these years. Though, Goku being Goku, he would challenge her to a sparring match. Back on Earth, after Broly and Kale passed away, Sheila was one of the last ones living by the lake. Of course, she would go visit her children, but she, 18, and Piccolo would spend quite a lot of time together. They would likely reminisce about old times during these visits, but she kept taking care of the garden Broly had left behind. Yamcha still plays baseball, but since he got back into fighting in this timeline, he continued his training as well. When Krillin started the new Turtle School and Tien started the new Crane School, he decided to start a martial arts school of his own. He called it the Wolf School, where he would teach his students his fighting style and some of his techniques, like the Wolf Fang Fist. Puar stuck with Yamcha for the rest of his life, and when Yamcha started the Wolf School, Puar became an instructor in shapeshifting there. Before he passed away, he would have selected a student of his to be his successor, which Puar would continue to be a shapeshifting instructor for the Wolf School, while he also helped guide the new leader in running the school. When Puar started helping teach shapeshifting at Yamcha's martial arts school, Oolong offered to help as well. But since he wasn't as skilled in shapeshifting as Puar, he ended up going from being an instructor to a student himself. After his shapeshifting improved enough, he was allowed to be an instructor again. While Bulma was still the head of Capsule Corporation, she would continue promoting Kale, Dr. Hedo, and Gohan to do their research. Though, when she eventually reaches retirement age, she passes the ownership of Capsule Corporation to both Trunks and Bulma. Afterwards, she still helped her children out if they needed it, but she was mostly living in relaxation after she retired. When Gohan wasn't helping Kale with the biology research, he would be researching Ki instead. Though after he finished that research, he started to research martial arts of the past. After Kale had passed away, he kept doing biology research to help Trunks and Bulma at Capsule Corporation. He also released books on all these topics that he had researched. He would eventually retire so that he could focus on his family. After retiring, he would visit Piccolo often too. Videl had kept teaching her martial arts classes for a while, though she would have retired around the same time Gohan did. Since her daughter seemed to get into martial arts, they would have trained with her too. Dr. Hedo kept using the previous Red Ribbon Army headquarters as his laboratory, which has now been merged completely with Capsule Corporation. By the time Bulma passed away, he had already retired, so his children took control of the laboratory. The Gammas were still around too, as they kept being security for Capsule Corporation. After his death, the Gammas mourned him, but they decided to stay there with Dr. Hedo's children, as they would stay employed as their security. As for Trunks, besides taking control of Capsule Corporation with his sister, he also continued to do superhero work alongside Goten, though he eventually quit doing the superhero stuff too and settled down with Mai. However, he would have started a martial arts school with Goten that focused on swordsmanship. Mai still worked at Capsule Corporation as a mechanic too, but she also started training in martial arts, since future Kale inspired her to learn. So, before Kale passed away, she would have gone to her to learn how to fight. Regardless, she and Trunks both had children together, and the two eventually retired. Goten had done the Great Saiyaman stuff with Trunks, but they both retired from it at the same time. After they started a martial arts school together, he remained an instructor there even after Trunks passed away. He also settled down with the police, and they had a family of their own. After both Goten and Trunks retired, their martial arts school was passed down to both of their children. Bola and Pan had continued to train together ever since they were children, and they developed a friendly rivalry. After Goten and Trunks stopped doing the superhero stuff, they were the next ones to take on the mantle of being Great Saiyan Woman 1 and 2. Though as they got older, they soon retired from this as well. The two would eventually settle down and have families of their own, but they remained close friends their entire lives. Bola would have been a co-owner of Capsule Corporation, as she started to expand the business further into cosmetics and fashion, with the help of Dr. Hedo's and his family's research. Pan would have started a martial arts school of her own that taught a combination of different styles. It mainly combined Kale's, 18's, and Piccolo's fighting styles together since they were all a major influence on her. The only original Z fighter left at this time was Piccolo, but he stayed involved in the lives of the families of Kale, Broly, Vegeta, and Goku. He would help give advice to their descendants or train them if they needed it. However, he also made sure not to get too involved, as he also wanted to ensure that the next generation could handle themselves without having to rely on him. After he passed away, this only left 17 and 18 behind. Since 17 and 18 were androids, they aged slower than everyone else, so they were still around for a while. 17 continued to be a park ranger, though he would come visit 18 and the others at the lake quite often. Besides Piccolo, 18 was the only one left, so she would likely visit 17 at his island often. Though, he would retire from being a park ranger, but he would pass the job on to his children. 18 continued to fight in and win the World Martial Arts tournaments, so she would keep bringing in money. She retained the title of champion up until she passed away. When 18 eventually passed away, she would be mourned as one of the greatest heroes of Earth, since they thought she defeated Majin Buu. When she arrived in Otherworld, Kale would be there waiting for her, as they then shared an embrace and a kiss.